Welcome to this Kent Business College Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a brilliant and highly relevant part of your professional development. We are unpacking Module 3 of our British Values series, and specifically, we're focusing on individual liberty in professional practice. Whether you're an apprentice just starting out or a more experienced workplace learner looking to brush up on your skills, figuring out exactly where your personal freedom ends and your professional duties begin can sometimes feel a bit tricky, right? Well, today, we're going to make it crystal clear.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by answering what is individual liberty, then we'll look at freedom and the authentic self, and walk through a very real-world social media scenario. After that, we'll cover professional boundaries and guidelines, touch on the legal framework that backs it all up, and finish off with maintaining professional responsibility.
Right, let's jump straight into Section 1. What is individual? So, individual liberty is a fundamental British value. At its core, it guarantees you the right to hold your own beliefs, express your own views, and make your own personal choices. It's essentially the bedrock of a free society. It means you are entirely entitled to your own mind. But, and this is absolutely crucial to what we're discussing today, when you step into a professional environment, this freedom doesn't just exist in a vacuum. You're part of a team now. You're in a shared, collaborative space, which means your individual liberty has to be carefully balanced against a few other very important factors.
Which perfectly sets up Section 2, freedom and the authentic self. This is where the grand theory of liberty meets the everyday reality of your job. I want you to think of this like a giant set of balancing scales. On one side, we've got personal autonomy. Now, modern workplaces actually want you to bring your authentic self to work. They want your diverse thoughts, your unique background, and your independent judgments. Why? Because that diversity is exactly what drives innovation. It's a real game changer for solving problems. But look at the other side of the scale, professional conduct. Having autonomy doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want without accountability. You still have to align your decisions with the organization's goals and stick to strict ethical standards. It's a constant, dynamic balancing act between being brilliantly you and being a reliable representative of your employer. Let's look at a practical example of this in Section 3, the social media scenario. This is literally where these two worlds collide the most often.
Imagine this. An employee is at home, on the sofa, scrolling through their phone on a Saturday night. They decide to post a highly controversial opinion online. Now, that's their social media conduct in action. In their head, they're probably thinking, hey, it's my weekend, this has nothing to do with work. But actually, scratch that, because it has everything to do with work. If their profile says where they work, the public instantly links that controversial post right back to the company. Almost overnight, that one post can seriously damage the organizational reputation. Suddenly, you've got a manager scrambling to do a policy review, pulling up the workplace guidelines, and scheduling team meetings to urgently reestablish the baseline for respectful communication. What felt like a completely private choice has suddenly created a massive professional headache for everyone.
So how do we stop things from spiraling like that? Well, let's turn to Section 4, professional boundaries and guidelines.
About freedom of expression. It's an amazing right, empowering you to voice your opinions, whether you're speaking up in a team meeting or posting on a blog. But here is the critical distinction. In the workplace, this right is not absolute. It comes with limitations. If what you're expressing harms others, creates office conflict, or damages the organization, it's no longer protected. You simply cannot say whatever pops into your head and hide behind freedom of expression if it's causing tangible damage to your professional environment.
Which leads us to a really important question. How do organizations maintain professional boundaries while still ensuring responsibility and respect? Well, they do it by building internal frameworks. We're talking about codes of conduct, equality policies, social media guidelines, the whole shebang. And listen, these rules aren't there to silence you or stamp out your personality. They're there to make sure that your individual freedoms don't accidentally trample on your colleagues, your clients, or the wider business. Responsibility and respect always have to be the guiding stars for how we behave at work.
And it's important to know that these workplace guidelines aren't just made up out of thin air. Let's look at Section 5, the legal framework.
The law actually protects both sides of our balancing scale. First up, you've got the Human Rights Act 1998. This legally protects your freedom of thought and expression. But, and this is a big but, these are what we call qualified rights. That means the law says they can be restricted if it's necessary to protect other people. On the other side of the scale, we have the Equality Act 2010. This is absolutely crucial because it protects individuals from discrimination based on things like age, gender, religion, disability, and sexual orientation. So you see how these two powerful laws work together?
They protect your personal freedoms for sure, but they equally demand that we all take legal responsibility for keeping our workplaces safe and entirely free from discrimination.
Okay, let's wrap this all up in our final section, maintaining professional responsibility.
If you take absolutely nothing else away from today, please remember this. Discriminatory or offensive comments are not protected under the principle of liberty and may lead to disciplinary action. It's as simple and as serious as that. Your actions, whether you are on the clock or off the clock, have real-world consequences. How you talk to people, how you conduct yourself online, how you represent your employer, it all matters immensely. Yes, individual liberty is a beautiful fundamental right, but professional responsibility, that is a non-negotiable expectation that you're going to need to meet every single day of your career.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer for Kent Business College. We've covered a lot of ground on individual liberty and professional practice today, but before you head back to your apprenticeship or your daily tasks, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If our personal freedoms only truly work when we all take collective responsibility, how are you going to ensure that your authentic self always elevates rather than damages your professional environment? Thank you so much for watching, for your focus, and for taking your professional development so seriously. Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time.